Hello again, Steve here, and today I wanted to talk about the importance for us to not so much focus on what is pretty and what is good looking and what is a distraction, but focus more on what is more likely to be truthful. And I think we'd be better off, and our quality of life will be higher as a result of that. I'm going to use the recent example of this. I think her name is Amy Robach, and the whole Jeffery Epstein ABC scandal, which should be a massive worldwide scandal, but is being buried, of course, and will continue to be buried for obvious reasons when you really think about it. Recently, Project Veritas, which this is a big thumbs up to Project Veritas. I've been an admirer of them for a while now. They have recently released a video of this Amy Robach, who is Robach or whatever, who is a very good-looking person. So that's once again in the title of this video. That should be a warning sign to be careful of anything that she says. And she is talking. She's lamenting basically not having had the scoop and not having had the prestige of putting out a story about Jeffrey Epstein years ago. She's not lamenting the fact that many other girls and so on would have been abused as a result of her not releasing a story, but that she didn't get the fame of being the one who brought down Jeffrey Epstein. So basically, she's saying in there that she had the whole scoop on Jeffrey Epstein. She knew that Prince Andrew or some prince or whatever was involved. She knew that Bill Clinton was involved. She knew that other people were involved, and that it was very dangerous to the Buckingham Palace would have gone after them with everything they had they released it. They wouldn't have got interviews with Kate and whoever, William, princes or whatever, if they had released this. I mean, think about that, right? It's all about the mighty dollar and your fame. Who gives a damn about little children? So remember that whenever these people are talking about how much they care about little children. They don't, right? So this is once again a reminder of that. Now, the couple of points I wanted to bring up too is anybody who wants to use the term conspiracy theory to knock down anybody's argument. I mean, here's another example of you're living in the Stone Ages if you're going to use that sort of thing now. And this vindicates, of course, people like, to some extent anyways, Dean Clifford, who once referred to a judge as a pedophile, and maybe he had scoop on it. I don't know. I mean, the guy was, he was harshly rounded up and imprisoned in solitary confinement for some unknown reason for months at a time for not having harmed anybody. So that should tell you something, that he might have been a little bit onto a scented trail, shall we say. And, people like InfoWars who've been talking about this sort of stuff for years and, of course, have been completely depersoned off the internet. And yet, somebody like Jeffrey Epstein was protected by ABC and people like Amy Robach. They were allowed to walk around and, pick on little girls and use them as sex slaves for years because otherwise that might jeopardize getting an interview with such vapid characters as Prince William and Kate Middleton or something, or what Buckingham Palace might say. I mean, but they're beautiful, right? I mean, this what's her name? Amy Robach is a beautiful person, therefore we should listen to her, right? So, so the one thing is, anybody who's going to talk about conspiracy theories, yeah, take a hike, basically, right? Who's going to accuse us of that? And the next one is, this story will be buried by the mainstream. If you listen to the mainstream media, and even if you listen to YouTube, this won't trend very high. You start listening to BitChute. Start going to BitChute and other alternative areas, and just be more skeptical, right? But bottom line is, I think, because this is so big, it cannot be completely hidden. It won't be big in terms of you won't notice it. I mean, Justin Trudeau's not going to talk about it. It's not going to be talked about in the European Parliament. It's not going to be talked about in the Democrat-led Congress of the USA. Of course not, right? Of course not, because Bill Clinton is implicated in it. Bill Clinton, they had the dirt on Bill Clinton, right? Years ago. Of course it won't be talked about. I mean, these are dangerous people. These are people who will, if you talk about them, you end up committing suicide with several bullets in the back of your head. I mean, this is bizarre, right? I mean, this Amy, whatever her name, says, yeah, of course Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. What are you talking about? This was a hot mic situation. This was not an interview. This is somebody who had a mic turned on while she was talking. These are what these people talk about when they're not just automatrons for their advertisers, right? Saying things that they have to say. Okay, so basically, I would say that the battle for truth against evil or against lies has just gotten more hot today. There is a culture war going on, and you see it heating up and heating up and heating up and heating up. And I said a while back that the high watermark of the real culture war was the whole LGBTQ movement. It wasn't the gay movement and so on. Because, I mean, if somebody's a man who likes to have, stick his dick up another man's ass, that's still a biological man and a biological man. Neither of them were arguing that they were otherwise. But when they got that right enshrined in law and so on, that was, what else was there to complain about it? But of course the left doesn't want to stop. So they invented, that if I'm a man who claims to be a woman and you won't wax my balls, my feminine balls, now I'm somehow aggrieved, right? That's a high watermark. This is it, right? So you see now younger people who are going to so-called conservative events and so on, standing up and asking real questions. Asking real questions, because there's enough people now who already knew what it is that Amy is talking about, but at least now we see a ABC. This was a front line. This was a defensive line against these perverts. We see the inside scoop now of them actually talking about it, admitting, that we knew everything, and we protected this guy. We let this guy walk around. What did she call him? Her lawyer, ABC's lawyer, called this guy the world's greatest pervert or child pedophile or something like that. That's what they referred to him as. This is the worst pedophile in history, or American history. But we're not going to talk about him. We got all the scoop on him. We know that Bill Clinton is involved. We know the royal family is involved. We know all of this, but we're not going to talk about it. So from now on, and of course, guys like, InfoWars and Dean Clifford and these guys were talking about this years ago. And thinking people had a sniff that this was probably correct, but they didn't have as much ammunition to fight back. So I think the lesson is, and this is an off lesson, but it's a lesson that we can learn about other people, and it's a lesson we can learn about ourselves, which is that just because somebody is pretty, just because a news anchor is all dressed up with makeup and so on, remember that that's all a diversion from something. Now, it may not be nefarious. I mean, a girl who wants to go out and find a suitor or whatever is going to dress up nicely and so on and so on. And she's not looking exactly as she is, but as long as she's not lying on top of that and creating falsehoods on top of that, as long as she's genuine or he's genuine on top of that, that's perfectly fine. That's trying to put forward our best, right? But these people, we see this person, this Amy Robach or whatever, she's very gorgeous. She's very pretty. Her hair is done nice. Her skin is beautiful and so on. And she's lying, right? And that's what we can't for a minute presume that anything that comes out of these people's mouths, when they're pretty and they're presented and there's flashing news and headline news and all this, we can't assume that any of that has any validity. It can all be a smokescreen, that they're trying to lead us somewhere where they know we don't really want to go, right? We don't really want to go. I mean, she's saying that she was worried that, Kate and William might not want to have an interview with them. But it's not about the big story. It wasn't about the big story, because this Epstein guy, if they had broken it somehow and they were able to manage it, they were involved with the biggest story in modern history, maybe. But it's the danger, you see. It's the danger, right? I mean, we're talking about a family, the royal family, who back 100 years ago, when China didn't want them to be selling opium there, they sent their navy over there and kicked their ass. Jeffrey Epstein is in a prison and he's about to talk, and he commits suicide by strangulation. These are very dangerous people, right? And we have to be aware of that. But we also have to be aware of it within ourselves, because it is our tendency to want to dress up sometimes and falsify truth. Because this is a demonic nature within each and every one of us to want to get what we can in spite of others. It's the animal nature of us, right? It's will to power. So I think there's a lot of lessons here, And I think the biggest one is don't trust anybody who's pretty because they're pretty. Steve here again, great chatting. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll talk again soon. Bye for now.